My fiancé's cruel dinner table insult shattered my confidence. My mother-in-law's apology couldn't fix it, so I shared my story online and rebuilt my life. I froze mid-smile when Alex's warmth turned ice across the candlelit table. I'm Emma Parker, 28 years old, and I live in Asheville, North Carolina. Tonight I'm here in my parents' dining room, soft yellow walls lined with family photos, the scent of roasted chicken lingering in the air, sitting across from my fiancé, Alex. His thigh presses against mine under the table, and for a moment I let the memory of last summer's proposal warm me. The way he knelt on the red brick patio, my favorite scarf draped around his neck, asking if I'd spend forever with him. We'd started with small talk, Mom's new chili recipe, Dad's golf league drama, laughter drifting between us. His brother Chris leaned forward, elbows on the table, retelling our college road trip mishaps. Steve, Alex's college roommate, chimed in with a grin. Remember that time Emma nearly drove us into a lake? I laughed and sighed. Please don't remind me, lifting my water glass. The candlelight flickered in my eyes as I dared to believe this was what engagement felt like, warm, easy, familiar. Then Alex cleared his throat. His smile faltered. I could taste the shift in air, heavy and metallic. He glanced at the wall of pictures, our beaming faces at graduations, holidays, his arm around me at every milestone. I met his gaze. I'm not sure, he said quietly, voice catching. My heart thudded so loud I heard the silence echo off the china cabinet behind me. I'm not sure I can marry you. My smile died halfway. Questions, why, what changed, built a knot in my throat. I reached across the table, but he pulled back. He forced a laugh, startlingly bright. Hey, he said, flicking his gaze to Chris and Steve. If you were prettier, I'd marry you. Chris and Steve exhaled laughter that sounded like knives. My cheeks flamed hotter than the candle flame between us. For a heartbeat, I considered standing up and shouting, how dare you? But I didn't. I sipped my water, feeling each swallow slice through me. My hands trembled so slightly I nearly dropped the glass. Mom cleared her throat. Is everything okay, sweetie? I offered her a small nod. Absolutely. My voice tasted strange, thin, brittle. I set the glass down and stood. Chairs scraped. All eyes followed me. I'm just going to powder my nose, I said, and there was something in my tone that made my mother's eyebrows knit and Alex's eyes flick to the door. I left the room, the echo of laughter chasing me through the hallway. Outside the bathroom door, I paused, fingertips brushing the brass knob. Behind me, the muffled clink of silverware and soft chuckles painted a portrait of everything I'd believed in, now fractured. I swallowed, heart pounding, and turned the knob. What do you do when the person who vowed to love you finds you unlovable? I closed the door softly and braced myself for what came next. I flicked on the bathroom light and flinched at my own pale face in the unforgiving glare. The fluorescent bulbs hummed as I pressed my palms to the cool porcelain sink, eyes stinging. Alex's words replayed in endless loop. If you were prettier, I'd marry you. His friend's laughter felt like shards embedding in my skin. I traced the dark circles under my eyes, proof that tonight's joke wasn't funny. Memories surfaced unbidden. The night he surprised me with takeout on the living room floor, our legs tangled in blankets, his head resting on my lap as we binge-watched old sitcoms. The afternoon, he slipped a handwritten note into my work bag. Can't wait to build a life with you. The morning, he knelt among spring blossoms at the botanical garden and asked me to marry him. Each recollection was a film reel cracking with static, unraveling before me in this tight, tile-lined cell. I closed my eyes and saw the first time I noticed the cracks. A funny comment about my dress size at his office party last December. A sideways glance when I told him I'd applied for the promotion. A half smile when he said, "You're smart," almost intimidating. Small fissures I'd pushed aside, telling myself love made everything smooth. Now, in this narrow room, I wiped a tear and looked at my reflection with fresh eyes. Emma Parker, 28, proud of my body that carried me through half marathons and motherhood dreams, proud of the promotions I'd earned after late nights at the firm, proud of the warmth I brought to every friendship. I steadied my breathing, heart hammering but voice gathering strength. A memory of his hand in mine returned, soft, hopeful, just hours ago. I forced the thought away. He hadn't held my hand tonight. He'd held back the only thing I needed, respect. I dipped a paper towel in cool water and pressed it to my eyes, letting it blur the fluorescent glare. I stood a little straighter. The woman in the mirror looked tired, but she looked determined. I lifted my chin and whispered to my reflection, "You deserve better." My voice was quiet but unwavering. I laid the towel down, smoothed my hair back, and adjusted the collar of my blouse. No more tears. No more doubt. Turning off the light, I pushed open the door. The muffled warmth of the dining room wrapped around me like a suffocating blanket. I walked back across the hallway carpet as if I owned every step. At the table, every head turned. Alex's mother opened her mouth, but I raised a hand. "Thank you, Mrs. Turner, for dinner," I said, voice steady. A calm I'd never felt in his presence settled around me. "I'm sorry, but I need to go." Silence filled the room until the chair scraped the floor behind me. I met Alex's eyes for the first time since he spoke. They flickered, surprise, regret, panic. I didn't look away, and I knew in that moment that I was already walking out the door. What happens when you choose yourself over everything you thought you needed? The night air hit me like a splash of ice water, sharp and real. I stepped out the front door, my heels clicking on the flagstones as I passed Chris and Steve, their faces frozen in awkward concern. Chris's mouth opened once, then closed as if whatever apology we needed to say had dissolved in the cool mountain breeze of Asheville. Steve shifted on his feet, eyes darting between Alex, still seated at the table, and me. I didn't look back. My breath emerged in small clouds, the scent of damp earth grounding me. I held my purse strapped tight, knuckles whitening as memories, both beautiful and brutal, whirled in my mind. I remembered Alex's gentle morning kisses, the way he tied my shoelaces before my first 10K. I remembered the sparkle of the engagement ring we'd picked together last spring, how my heart had felt swollen with promise, and I remembered the laughter tonight that had snapped all of it like brittle twigs. With each step toward my car, I felt layers of indecision peel away. His texts buzzed in my pocket, bright screens demanding my attention. "Emma, wait! Please come back! I love you!" But I had no words for him, not after the joke, the doubt, the public scene. I reached the driveway, gravel crunching under my feet. The house loomed behind me, warm light spilling from the windows, a portrait of the future I'd once believed in. My fingers hovered over the lock on my car door, as if hesitating to sever the last tether. I slid inside, the leather seat cool beneath me. I dropped my purse on the passenger side, pressing my palm to the steering wheel. The engine's hum began with a turn of the key, a soft murmur that promised motion. Alex's voice sailed through the window, fragile. "Emma!" I started to roll the window down but caught myself. The door locked with a soft click, his voice caught. "Please." I inhaled deeply, closing my eyes for one more flash of memory, the way he'd undone the knot of my scarf on that cool autumn night, whispering, "You're beautiful." That was the man I loved. But that man had vanished, replaced by someone too cruel to hide behind forced laughter. I opened my eyes, stared at the rearview mirror. In its reflection, I saw a woman standing tall inside a car, no longer the girl who needed his approval. Foot on the brake, I shifted into drive. The tires whispered against the pavement as I pulled away, leaving the glow of their world behind. The streetlights passed in a steady blur, each one illuminating my resolve. I was choosing myself. When the house disappeared around the bend, I finally exhaled. A tight, jittery breath of relief and grief mingled in my lungs. And in that moment, as Asheville's quiet streets stretched out before me, I realized this was just the beginning of finding out who I could be without him. The road ahead was dark, but it was mine. What would I discover when the headlights revealed the life I choose for myself? My phone buzzed before the sunrise spilled through my curtains. I blinked against the glow of dozens of missed calls and notifications. Mom, my best friend Mara, even my boss. My thumb hovered over the screen as it lit up again. Emma Parker tagged in a dozen posts. I sat up, heart pounding, and swiped open my messages. "Are you okay? Holy shit, Alex did what? I saw your story, he's a monster. Sending you coffee on his tab." And then there were the comments I hadn't expected. Strangers' condolences, virtual hugs, even offers of therapy sessions. But amidst the kindness, a few cruel barbs. She must have been ugly if he said that. And the inevitable, what did she do to deserve it? Scrolling like dark shadows through the sunlight, I slipped out of bed, clutching the phone as though it were a lifeline. My legs felt heavy, nailed to the floor by a mix of shame and relief. I shuffled to the kitchen, coffee brewing, and stared at the steam curling from the mug. The buzz of my phone was relentless. New alerts from Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, each retelling of last night's joke. Viral engagement fail, read one headline. Fiancé walks out after brutal insult, read another. I scrolled through the r/relationship advice thread where someone had reposted my story in fragments. Replies stacked by the hundreds, advice, outrage, solidarity. A few users confessed they'd stayed in toxic relationships far longer. Others shared their own exit stories. Beneath their empathy, I felt a strange kinship, a community built on broken trust and newfound strength. I sank onto the couch and opened my laptop. I hesitated over the comments, some praising my grace, others questioning my reaction. In that digital sea, I felt both exposed and buoyed by connection. I clicked on a blank document and titled it, June 13, 2025. The cursor blinked at me like a heartbeat. Should I write about the panic seizing me last night, the way my fingers trembled on the door handle? Should I admit I almost turned the car around, nearly convinced I'd made a mistake? I tapped my pen against the desk. Words tumbled unbidden, shame, anger, relief, hope. I typed. I never thought a joke could hurt more than silence. Outside, the morning traffic hummed its usual rhythm, indifferent to my small revolution. I paused, fingers hovering again. The journal was mine, no other eyes but my own. Yet I craved witness, proof that I existed beyond his shadow. I glanced at my phone, at the swarm of messages that had turned my private grief into public spectacle. The screen felt heavier now, a mirror of my tangled emotions. I shifted in my chair, heart softening around the edges. Carefully, I began writing, word by word, the raw truth of last night and this morning's bittersweet aftermath. And as the city woke around me, I realized this writing, this reckoning, might be the first step toward healing. What happens when you turn your private pain into someone else's story? And am I ready to share every truth in my journal? The ringtone jolted me, sharp as glass breaking in a silent room. I stared at the screen. An unfamiliar area code, no name. My thumb hovered before I swiped to answer. "Emma," sobbed a trembling voice. It's Deanne Turner." My heart stuttered. Alex's mother calling me at home. A swirl of panic and curiosity nudged me upright on the couch. "Mrs. Turner," I managed, voice careful. She gulped, breath ragged. I'm so sorry." I don't know how to say this without crying. I pressed the phone tighter to my ear, bracing for yet another apology from Alex, one I'd already refused. "It wasn't right," she hiccuped. "What he said, what we all laughed at. I never approved of that cruelty." I should have stopped him, but I froze. Her shame seeped through the line, heavy and genuine. My chest throbbed, part anger, part compassion. "I heard how the story spread," she continued. "I've seen the comments, some are kind, many are horrified. And I've been in tears thinking of how deeply I hurt you." Silence stretched. I ran my fingers along the couch's fabric, grounding myself. "I've watched Alex since he was a boy. He's smart, he's capable of love. But I never taught him that jokes at another's expense can destroy more than words can build." Her confession was raw, an admission I'd longed to hear from him. A lump formed in my throat. "Mrs. Turner," I said softly. "Thank you for calling me." She sobbed again. "Please, Emma. Please think about coming back. He's called me nonstop, he's broken. I promised him you forgive him, but I won't lie, he needs you." His need sounded hollow in my ears, a ring in an empty hall. I closed my eyes and pictured his face, the forced laugh, the ache of disappointment in his eyes. I remembered the moment I realized he valued my looks more than my heart. My resolve flickered, but I let it stand firm. "Mom," I whispered, "never had I felt such kinship with this woman. I appreciate your apology more than you know, and I believe you, this wasn't you." Her gasp crackled through the line. "But I've learned something these past days," I continued. "I can't give my trust back to someone who broke it so carelessly. I'm grateful for this call, but—" My throat tightened, I swallowed. "But I'm not going back." A long sob answered. "Emma," she whispered, voice fragile, "please promise me one thing, don't close your heart forever." I lifted the phone and let her words hang between us. "I won't," I said. "I promise not to close my heart, but I choose to keep it safe." Her quiet wail drifted through the speaker, then faded as she let go. I ended the call and set the phone on the coffee table, my hands trembling. The room felt hollow without her voice, yet strangely full of finality, of understanding, of possibility. I leaned back, eyes fixed on the muted glow of my screen. I'd heard the apology I needed. Now I had to decide what to do with the freedom it gave me. Was my heart open enough to heal, or would I lock it away forever? I stared at the blank post box on my screen, my fingers hovering as though they belonged to someone else. The room was quiet, save for the soft hum of my laptop and the distant murmur of traffic beyond my window. I recalled every detail of the engagement, the hush of the dining room, the flicker of candlelight, Alex's faltering smile, and the cruel punchline that shattered me. I took a steadying breath and began to type. I was 28 when I fell in love. I thought I was going to marry my best friend. Then he told me he wasn't sure. If I were prettier, he'd marry me. Words poured out in a rush, no edits, no hesitation. I described the way my cheeks burned under laughter, the chilling calm I found in the bathroom mirror, the crunch of gravel under my heels as I left. I wrote about the 1,000 texts I ignored, the flood of strangers' kindness, the sting of cruel comments. I laid my heart on the table, raw and unguarded. Each sentence felt like a confession and a release. As I recounted Alex's mother's tearful apology, my chest unclenched in a slow exhale. I wrote about shame and relief, humiliation and empowerment, how I stumbled toward strength in the wake of betrayal. For a moment I paused, my cursor blinking. My heart throbbed in my ears. Then, without looking back, I hit post. The screen shifted. My post lived. Notifications began trickling in. One upvote, then 10, then 100. Comments scrolled by faster than I could read, messages of solidarity, virtual hugs. "I'm so sorry," and "Thank you for speaking up." Some shared stories of cruel words once spoken to them. Others offered resources and support. My thumb itched to scroll, but I forced myself to look away. I closed my eyes and felt my pulse slow. In the silence, I realized I'd done it. I'd taken my private pain and set it free, trusting strangers to hold it gently. A ping drew me back. My inbox glowed with unread messages. Dozens of direct invites to support groups, journalism sites offering to amplify my story, a few skeptics questioning authenticity. But mostly, there were people who saw themselves in my words and thanked me for giving them a voice. I leaned back, chest warm with something unfamiliar but wonderful. Connection. I wasn't alone. Outside, the setting sun painted the sky in fading gold. I imagined each notification as a tiny light flickering across the digital expanse, a constellation of shared experiences guiding me forward. I opened the comments one by one, reading stories of heartbreak, survival, and hope. And as each thank you appeared, I realized that this moment, this unfiltered confession, was more than catharsis. It was the start of something bigger, a community bound by truth. My phone buzzed again, but I ignored it. Tonight, I'd chosen to listen to voices I never knew I needed, and as the red envelope count climbed into the hundreds, I wondered, what happens when a single voice sparks a chorus? I cradled my latte in the warmth of the rhubarb cafe, the steam fogging my glasses as I scrolled through the latest comments. It had been days since my post went live, and the notification count still climbed. Messages of solidarity, offers to meet for coffee, and a handful of harsh judgments about Alex, some warranted, others missing the point entirely. I tapped through a message from Carla, a college friend I'd lost touch with, who wrote, "I'm so proud of you. If you ever need a friend, I'm here." I smiled, fingers brushing the cup's ceramic rim, and set my phone face down. Around me, the cafe hummed with morning rush, baristas calling out orders, laptop keys clicking, strangers' conversations weaving into a comforting undercurrent. For the first time in weeks, I felt something resemble peace. I opened my journal, leafing past the pages of raw confession to a blank spread titled, "Next Steps." My pen hovered as I wrote, "Finished drafting my TEDx talk proposal plan weekend getaway, with Mara reconnect with my parents, weeknight dinner." Apply for the promotion. I hesitated on each bullet, felt like a promise I was ready to keep. The ache in my chest had dimmed from a roaring fire to steady embers, warm, manageable, contained. A ping from my email startled me. I opened it, an invite to share my story at a local women's empowerment panel. I blinked twice, reread the subject line. They'd seen my post and wanted me on stage. My heart fluttered, excitement, terror, hope. I dreamed of public speaking once but always hesitated, waiting for permission I never granted myself. This felt different, an invitation born from my own voice, not someone else's. I typed a quick reply. "I'd be honored. Thank you for the opportunity." My fingertip trembled as I hit send. Outside the window, a delivery bike screeched to a halt. The rider jumped off with a bouquet of wildflowers and a note. "You matter. Always." I traced the petals with a shy grin, tucking the note into my journal. Moments later, Mara slid into the seat across from me, 2 iced coffees in hand. She reached out, squeezing my arm. "How are you holding up?" I exhaled slowly. "Better than I have in a long time." She smiled, eyes soft. "You've inspired so many." I glanced at my journal, the to-do list already filled with plans. A wave of gratitude washed over me. This was more than healing, it was rebirth. I lifted my coffee. "To new beginnings," I said. Mara clinked her cup against mine. "To you." I took a sip, savoring the bittersweet blend, and felt the taste of possibility on my tongue. As we talked and laughed, I realized I was no longer defined by his words or their echoes online. I was defined by every step I'd taken away from that table, every story I'd shared, and every plan I'd written on this page. When I finally left the cafe, the sun was high, and the air felt fresh, like a promise kept. I tucked my journal into my bag, my hand brushing the wildflower note. And I wondered, as I walked down the street with my head held high, what incredible stories will I create when I stop surviving and start truly living? I felt the microphone tremble under my fingertips before I even spoke. Tonight, I'm Emma Parker, 30 years old now, and I stand on a small stage in downtown Asheville's Crescent Moon Cafe, the hum of chatter fading as I look out over a sea of expectant faces. The spotlight warms my skin, and for a heartbeat, I remember the dining room table where everything broke. Then I inhale, steadying myself on the simple wooden podium. I once believed my worth was measured by someone else's laughter. I begin, voice low. The audience leans in. I can hear the soft click of a camera shutter. Months have passed since that night, but the sting of embarrassment still sharpens my words. I tell them about the candlelit dinner at my parents' home, how I sipped water to hide trembling hands, how I flushed under Alex's cruel joke. I recount the fluorescent bathroom light where I found my own resolve, the crunch of gravel under my heels as I left his world behind, and the glow of my laptop screen when I shared my story online. My voice catches on the part about strangers' kindness, how messages flooded my phone from broken women and curious men, each one a lifeline woven from empathy. A hand raises in the crowd. A young woman, eyes bright with unshed tears. I pause and nod, offering a silent welcome before continuing. "I learned that vulnerability isn't weakness," I say. "It's a bridge, a way to connect the fracture lines inside us with empathy in others." I watch heads nod, feel the weight of their attention. Gone is the girl who stayed silent at the dinner table. In her place is someone carved from every raw confession and every step forward. I share the moment Alex's mother called. That tender apology I almost used to return to a world of broken promises. and how I chose to keep my heart safe instead of shattered again. I speak of that viral post, the messages that called me brave, the panel invitation, the text draft still sitting in my journal. My cheeks warm as I admit I still worry. Will fear ever slip back in? Tonight, I say, voice firm, I'm not here to ask for permission to be brave. I'm here to claim it. A ripple of applause washes over me. I smile, eyes scanning familiar faces, friends who lifted me, strangers who lifted each other through my words. I'm Emma Parker, I repeat, softer now, and I know my worth doesn't depend on anyone's approval. The audience stands, hands reaching out in collective affirmation. I step away from the podium, heart pounding but whole, and let them guide me back through clapping aisles. Outside, the night air carries the scent of jasmine and possibility. I pull my journal from my bag, its pages filled with every hard lesson and every hopeful plan, and touch the pen mark titled, Next, Write My Own Story. A breeze lifts the jacket on my arm as I walk down the street, neon lights painting patterns on the pavement. Behind me, voices drift through the cafe window. Laughter, shared stories, the soft echo of you matter. I pause under a lamppost, looking up at the stars peeking through the city glow. Somewhere out there, someone reads my words, finding courage to tell their own. I tuck the journal close and whisper to the night, This is only the beginning, and I walk on, ready for the chapters yet to come.